Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to the very first episode of Real Love, Real Relationships. Oh, I'm so excited to finally be here. This project has been stirring within me for a couple of months now, and it's so amazing to finally see it coming into fruition and birthing. It's like, oh, amazing. It's like having a child for the first time. It's so exciting. So the reason that I wanted to create this series is because I kept seeing so much misinformation in regards to how relationships actually work. And I really wanted to open up conversation with couples, especially to give you a behind closed doors peek into what it really means or what it really takes to make a relationship last and go the distance. You know, with social media and all of that these days, we can get so caught up in the highlight reel, and that's exactly what's going on, right? People are only showing the highlights of their relationships, and it's creating a misinformed group of people who think that in order for a relationship to be great, it has to be perfect. So I am here to debunk that truth and really give you an insight into how it isn't always like that. Relationships aren't perfect, but they can be perfect for you and offer you what it is that you need to move forward, to grow, to expand with an incredible human by your side. So I'm incredibly passionate about this. You know, my personal journey was that I had a belief that if it wasn't perfect, it wasn't right. And that resulted in me sabotaging a lot of relationships at the first sign of a bump. So I'm really, really excited and really passionate about bringing this to you, because I know that there are so many relationships out there right now that are possibly going through some bumps, and you're sitting there and wondering, oh my gosh, like, is this how it's meant to be? Or, oh my gosh, am I with the right person? Or this isn't right, this isn't perfect, maybe I'm not with the right person. And that's not always the truth. So I'm hoping that through this series, you are going to feel a little bit of relief and realize that we're all in this together. We are all human, and just allow yourself a bit of space and patience to really understand that relationships take effort. They're not all shiny and roses and happy and sunshine all the time, and that's exactly how they're meant to be. You wouldn't want it that way. So my loves, without further ado, I welcome my first guests today, which are Jaimee Leigh Curtis and Erik Bergan. So I met these two beautiful souls at a personal development weekend that we did here in Brisbane in November of 2018, and I witnessed them have an incredible breakthrough in their relationships. I'm really excited to bring that to you guys, to talk about that, to dive in deep on all the things, sex, fighting, or, you know, conscious coupling, all of the things that make up a really beautiful, healthy, sustainable, happy relationship. So my loves, enjoy, and I will see you again at the end. Bye. All right, welcome guys. So you guys are the first interview couple on the series. How do you feel about that?
Pretty damn exciting.
Yeah, it's
good
awesome.
choice.
Yeah.
My masculine just wants to be like, of course, who else would you pick?
Naturally.
My little boy's like, this is so exciting.
Yeah. Awesome. So the reason that I wanted to get you guys on the show was because I remember when I first met you. So we've only really known each other since November, which is amazing. And when we first met, we were all taking part in the Extreme Leadership program run by Alexi and Preston. And I remember a really pivotal point in your relationship in that program, where you were standing and you were looking at each other and you didn't know whether or not your relationship was going to continue or end. Can you remember that?
How can you forget? No, what
Yeah.
one time in front of 108 people where we weren't sure if we were going to be a thing. That seemed to hang in the balance.
Yeah, maybe. But it was such a beautiful moment to witness, and that's why I was just like, I really want to get these guys on to share that journey, because, like, as I've said, you know, I think there's a real stigma out there around the perfect relationship. I don't know if stigma is the right word, but there's this idealistic view on how relationships are meant to look, and it's that highlight reel, right? And I call it the shiny couple syndrome, where it's like, it's got to be perfect or it's fucking wrong, right? And what I really love is that, well, I know for sure, is that my relationship is far from that.
But I used to have that belief of, well, if it's not perfect, he's not right for me, and I would walk away quite easily. So obviously the intention behind the series is to really offer that behind closed doors look at to what really goes on in relationships. So I would love for you guys to share a little bit about what was going on at that time and how you moved through it.
Easy. Do you mind if I set
You go.
the stage?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So just to set a base understanding for people who are just watching the series for the first time, such a privilege to be the first ones to
And Nikki, you're
introduce.
amazing at having these conversations.
My goodness. I'm like, finally, yes, we get that.
Yes.
You know, so when you reached out, it was like a full body, just hell yes. Now, first of all, in terms of swearing, are we allowed to swear on this?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a full body fuck
It's a full
yes.
body fuck yes.
Because the misconception that when I grew up thinking, okay, I'm one half, I need to find my other half, and we complete each other.
Mm-hmm.
That was the image. So right now, just to set the stage, I don't subscribe to that model anymore. I now believe I'm a full, whole, complete person, meeting a full, whole, complete person, and then we can come together, create magic, or we can go apart and create magic. There's a sovereignty to each individual that was completely missing from my old paradigm. And I feel it's missing from the paradigm today. So just to set the framework, we're two whole individuals coming together because we choose to, not because we need to. And that, in that way, instead of a plus sign, right? We see that all the time, Erik plus Jaimee.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as a multiplication sign. It's Erik times Jaimee.
Oh, cool.
And so we actually exponentially impact our reach into the world and also our own individual experience, happiness, joy, whatever that experience is. I personally believe that, and we'll get into this, that relationships are a choice that isn't taken lightly.
Boom, straight in there. Let's go.
Let's go, right? Like,
Let's go
relationships
there.
are a choice, and they're not taken lightly. Like, they're not to be fiddled with or played with, because that's what one of my mentors said early on. He's like, try sitting on a mountaintop and be with yourself and find enlightenment. And once you've done that, come back and the next stage is to come be in a relationship with someone whose love you crave and still continue to grow spiritually. Like, good luck.
Yeah. Well, I've always said, my relationship is probably my biggest personal development journey. Like, it's constantly
Absolutely.
that constant
100%.
peeling back layer after layer after layer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anything to add on that, babe?
No, I think you nailed it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that time. To answer your question. I kind of just wanted to set the stage of why we choose to be in a relationship. I think it's an amplifier of the human experience.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Now we get to go into the story of it.
Yeah.
So you tell this so beautifully. I love hearing that we share the story. But we were we had been together for a while. About how long we've we been together? A year?
Yeah, it had just gone a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we were doing well. We were like, it's the best relationship I'd had up until that point. I felt like I was nailing it, doing really well, right? Like, as a man, I was like, I've never felt this good about a relationship before. And about midway through, just to bring it to a point, about midway through Extreme Leadership, there was a moment, and we were on different wavelengths at that point. I just stepped into more of who I was. I'd just gone, you know what? I'm a sovereign being. I'm a full body. I can be like, like, it's kind of like my life went from black and white into color.
Technicolor.
And you were in a bit of a different space at that time.
Yeah.
You want to share?
Yeah, so this container was set up, and I'm sure if you've heard any of Nikki's stories that it's quite an intense container, and it's designed to bring up everything for you to really step into who you truly are in your leadership.
Yeah.
And we both went into that container somewhat sovereign. A lot of people didn't even know we were together until the moment that you described.
Yeah.
Because we both had quite unique intentions on what we were hoping to get out of the weekend.
Yes.
Which was really beautiful. And I just come out of a practice, and I was probably at that point you know, at the most fragile of the whole weekend, because it was really that breaking point for me. And I believe that sometimes we need to break in order to really become. And so Erik, I was in a process, and Erik walked up to me, and he was in front of me, and he was like sharing, you know, with me. He was like, kind of like, I'm here, you know, and there was just this piece of me that felt empty. There was this piece that I was like, I can't feel you. And I shared to him, I was like, you're standing in front of me, but I can't feel you.
Wow, that must have been really kind of like confronting for you, especially because you've been with this person for a year, and then in the space of what, like a week, it had just shifted like that, yeah?
Like a moment, right? It was like the previous exercise, I was getting these like downloads, like it was quite a big movement practice. And so I just kept getting like, Erik's not the one, Erik's not the one. And I was like, what? Like full on, right? I know, like
what are you talking about?
what like he's just moved to Queensland, like we're just moved in together, like and you know, my egoic brain wanted to like fast forward it, but like in that moment I just had to be in the truth of like, okay, so he stood in front of me. What I'm experiencing right now is that I can't feel him.
Yeah.
And
I just want to like acknowledge you because jump in here as a man. I want to jump in and just acknowledge you, Jaimee, for standing in your truth, even because that's what so many women don't do. And especially when a man is, because I was like in my truth, like I'm present, you know, I was very confident in that moment, and she just didn't feel it, right? So I thought I was doing everything right, I'm being present, and she doesn't feel it. And so often men go without that feedback, and we just continue this loop of thinking we're doing it, and then behind the scenes our woman is suffering or not feeling us. Yeah. So I just want to acknowledge you for that moment. It came together as a perfect storm, where I thought I was doing everything right. Jaimee's like, I don't feel you.
So can you explain to the people that are watching and listening what you believe the disconnect was?
You know, I don't know. I just know that there was this feeling in my body. And I think that that's the perfect answer for everybody watching, because sometimes we don't know.
Yeah.
We just get this.
Logically make sense. Yeah.
It doesn't logically make sense. Now a key piece was like, I wasn't standing there being like, oh my God, you're not the one. Like I didn't freak out, right? I was in my heart and I was in my truth. And I was like, there's something here. Yeah. I can't, like you're stood in front of me, but I can't feel you. And it was breaking my heart. Like to actually share this, it was heartbreaking for me, because I wanted the fairy tale. I wanted this. There was so much magic, but in that moment, the truth was that. And I had to share that. And what I want to share with everybody is that the downloads and the truth in that moment might not necessarily be the truth. I mean, Erik and I are obviously still together. It wasn't the truth that he's not the one. What the truth was that needed to bring me to the truth.
Yes.
Right. So we then had a conversation, and the conversation was flowing. And at the time, Erik was opening his heart to me for the first time, and I was starting to feel him. It was beautiful. It was kind of like the thing that I craved.
Yeah.
And I was watching as the participants were walking back in. Now, this container was so strict that if you didn't rock up on time, then you got locked out of the container. And we were about to go into probably the highlight, the pivotal point of the entire weekend. Right. So we'd just done all this work in order to have this experience. And my people pleaser, because I was watching the people and Erik couldn't see the people because he was in this share, like he was opening his heart to me for the first time. He was sharing to me, and my people pleaser didn't want to interrupt him. So my people pleaser didn't interrupt him until it got to a point where I was like, baby, I'm so sorry, but I'll stay and we can share this if you want, or if you want to experience this next piece, then we can do that. He was like, no, let's go and experience the next piece. By the time we got up and walked to the doors were locked, and we missed out on this experience. And at that time, it triggered both of us massively. And the lesson, you know, in that moment, I just felt so much guilt that like I was responsible for him missing out on this like once in a lifetime experience. And he was like, how dare you?
That was perfect for me, because up until then, I'm a recovering people pleaser now. And up until then, I was so well practiced at putting others in front of me, and I just stepped into, you know what? I get to put myself first. Like that was my massive light bulb moment. I get to actually put me first.
I choose me.
I choose me. And so in that moment, it was perfect, because all of a sudden I had the opportunity to fully own that, you know what? I'm pissed off that
At you.
I'm
you. Pissed off
I'm
at
pissed
you.
Off like I was pissed off at her for the first time.
Yeah.
For the first time, I was actually pissed off. Like, and I gave myself permission to direct that. Which in that moment, and I'm not saying it's healthy long term. I'm just in that moment, it liberated me to actually speak my truth for the first time.
Yeah.
And that truth was, as much as you didn't feel me, as much as you felt we were disconnected, I still choose you. And I kept repeating, I still choose you. And I still choose you. And I still choose you.
Because we were sat in front of each other in this moment, and I was like getting that it's not the one, and he's going, I still choose you. And it's like my brain's going, I can't choose you. Like, and it's like but I'm in it, right? So I'm kind of observing my brain, and he's like in tears, literally heartbreaking, like, I don't care what's been up until now. I fucking choose this. And I'm like, well, if you don't know who you are, how do you know that you choose me?
Yeah.
You know? And that was like, and this isn't, there's nothing wrong with Erik at the time. Obviously, it was just the process we were going through. And this moment, you know, even though there was no resolution in the world, logically, there was just this energy that brought us together in that moment. And so we had this beautiful moment outside where, you know, we were together. There was still so much love for this man. It didn't mean that we were going to break up and all this stuff, but it was like, I couldn't fast forward into the future because there was just this moment of like, there's just this stuff here that we have to work through.
And that's why the doors were locked, right?
That's why the doors were locked, right? That was the biggest breakthrough for us in the entire thing. It was so perfect.
It was perfect.
We walked back into the room and we were invited back in, and we were invited to experience the shares of the people that had just had this life-changing experience that we'd missed out on, which was like even more triggering, right?
Yeah, fuck it.
You know, it was actually quite hilariously bad.
Oh.
It was quite hilarious when we reflect on it. And then the facilitator stood and said, is there anybody that was locked out that wants to share? And then what happened?
I stood up for the first time of the whole weekend.
Yeah, because I don't remember seeing you until that point.
Exactly. I'd been in the background, and I stood up for the first time, and I walked up in front of 108 people. You know, my hands were shaking. I still remember, and I don't know if I have a future with this woman, and I've just moved into we've just moved in together. I'm in a new city. And I don't know if that's going to continue. So my whole kind of, if you want to talk chakras, my base is just like shaking. And I stand there and I finally am able to release and cry and share what's real. So it was a pivotal moment for me because that was my intention, was to really access my heart. And I was able to do that in front of these amazing, beautiful humans. And then this goddess in the audience stands up and she says, I fucking choose you.
I fucking choose you. I remember it so clearly. I was just in tears. It was so beautiful.
And I run over and just pick her up. It felt like a scene out of a movie. And some people around, and I couldn't pick her up. And so I was like, but it felt like a movie.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
That was the moment that you described.
Yeah. And what's shifted since then?
So much.
Every day. Okay, here's another thing. So I want to set this up properly for people because it's really messed me up in the beginning. The moment I think I know Jaimee Leigh is the moment our relationship starts dying. The moment I think I know her. And the moment I think she knows me and we have this sorted, that's the moment we start dying. And so I meet her again every day. This morning, I was like, hi.
I'm Erik. How you doing?
we joke about it. We remind ourselves jokingly, we have these little comedic triggers. And we're like, whenever we have a realization, I might go, hi, I'm Erik. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And so as much as we have chosen each other, there's this beautiful, yes, we've committed to each other for this lifetime, and we meet each other again brand new every day.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that in itself keeps it alive, right? It keeps, and like you said, it stops it from dying, but it keeps that spark alive, and it does stop you from slipping into that.
Truth. It's how the universe works. Like nothing stays the same. Nothing stays the same. It's not this romantic, like we heard in the movies, like I feel like I'm meeting you for it's like the first day every day. It's not a freaking it's not a way to look or make her feel a certain way, right? It's not that like I'm a devoted husband and I want to make her feel like a queen. That's not the energy. It's actually it's the truth. It's seeing life the way life sees it. When nothing stays the same, everything is constantly evolving and changing and molding. And like I'm looking at the creek down here. The creek is never the same.
Every day.
It's a new creek every day. So why are we any different? I'm looking at my queen the way that nature looks at my queen, which is she's brand new every day.
Yeah.
I'm brand new every day.
And I love that. And I fully understand it. But I would say there's a lot of people out there that don't get it, right? That are not in that kind of conscious relationship, as you would call it. So what advice do you have for them in order to kind of, especially if it's like, say, the woman who's spiritually sound and getting and understanding it with a guy who's very like logical and straight down the line, like how do you kind of bring that into a relationship?
Great. First of all, I think you should just nag him.
Yeah.
Make sure he goes to a heart-opening seminar, and make sure he goes. Just nag him and tell him he's not enough until that.
Yeah, you are not a man until you do this.
Yeah. Tried and true. It works every time.
So when you guys actually met, were you both into the same like personal development and stuff, or were you peas in a pod in that regard, or were you set?
We met. Come on.
It was a little different.
Okay. So we're not the only ones. We've spoken to loads of couples and they have a similar dynamic. I don't know why it happens, but it tends to be a pattern. So if you're listening, this might be a pattern for you too. The woman tends to go first.
Yeah.
Like go deeper first. Like Jaimee was deep in the feminine embodiment work. She'd done all the Tony Robbins and the how, what I call the how, and the mindset work. And now she was deep in the embodiment work. I was in the Tony Robbins world. So I felt like she was always kind of like 3 steps ahead in terms of how deep she was willing to go. And she inspired me to step up. Now, what the story typically is woman is more enlightened, more embodied, and is dragging the partner along. Yeah. And the frustration of like, come on, like I can see him, like he's right there. He's just not willing to step up. He's not willing, like he's not doing it. And so there's like an impatience that I feel in a lot of women.
And there's like a wanting him to be somewhere he's not.
Yes.
And what I want to say, this is really, really important, ladies. You can see who your man is and what he's becoming years before he is about to become it. Yeah. And your job is to be patient, triple it, times it by 10. I mean it. Like our role is to invite him, not to push and drag him because he thinks he's being told what to do. And that's not what men want, right? No. We get to invite them into our worlds. And the invitation is through our felt sense. And the more that we're embodied, the more that it lights us up, the more that we let them feel how it impacts us, feel our joy, feel our pain, feel all of it, the more they'll step in. And they do it without even consciously realizing. They're not going to make a conscious decision, I'm going to go to that thing. But when they feel you come home from it, and you're like, oh, I'd love to have you there one time. Oh. Like it's such a different energy. What do you do when I go, oh? Right? Right? I'm like, oh my God, I went to this cacao ceremony and it would be great for you. It'll open your heart and it'll make us feel even more connected.
And you need to do this.
Where do you go? Right? Yeah. Like the divine feminine, the feminine gets to be an invitation. Like Erik, who he is today is like the man that I saw like 18 months ago, 2 years ago, right? Like that I had moments and glimpses of. And when we got together, of course, there was this like part of me that was like, oh my God, can't you just see who you be and who you're becoming? And like, like, no, it's just like holding this space. And then when he comes to his realization, of course, I celebrate, I love, I like, you know, we go first, we see it, and it's our job to like acknowledge them, praise them, love on them, hold the space for them to step into. That's what a true queen does, right?
That's it. And that's, you know, something I've definitely noticed in my relationship is like, I was that person that was like, babe, you need to come and do these things. You need to come and try them. It's going to be so good for you. It's so awesome. And was doing the pushing. And it wasn't until I stepped back, embodied my feminine to really allow him to step into his masculine, that he just completely shifted. And he would just say stuff out of like nowhere. I'd be like, where the fuck did that come from? You know, he was already on that journey.
Yes.
I just got to hold, like you said, that space and invite him and call him forward in a really loving way, not a, you need to do this.
Yes.
It's a huge, it's so beautiful.
And our men are on their own journeys and it doesn't look the same as ours.
No, exactly.
Good, but like, and they don't even have to go to seminars and events and stuff. You know, a lot of the time, just you doing the work and being in open space and inviting him in and sharing your heart with him invites him into his own.
Yes.
His own growth.
Yeah.
Truly. Our hearts are so powerful.
And I loved what you said about the patience and how you brought that up, because I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with. I have, for sure. And most definitely is like, I want it now. Like, you need to be doing it now, rather than acknowledging that each and every single individual has their own journey and their own timing, right? So we get to step into that patience. And often when we do, and we just take that step back and take the pressure off, it just happens so much faster without us even trying, right?
And I think there's an energy of like, if you're like, you're being patient, but you're still like resentful, pissed off, right? Because you're still exuding that. He's still going to feel it. He's still not going to feel enough. He's still
expectation with the patience.
Yeah. You're never pleasing. Like, all our men want to do is love us well. Yep. They'll like give us anything. Like, they will kill for us. Literally, they will die for us. So we need to not take that lightly. Yeah. We need to not manipulate and abuse it.
Yeah.
We get to be really truthful. Like, when we're going to ask for something, make sure it's something that you really fucking want. Yeah. And that's really important to you. And then show up in the relationship. Like, even though I can see this vision of who you be, like, fuck, you're doing a good job today. Like, fuck, you're an amazing man as you are today. Like, this is what I trust about you. And like, you can say that to them, or you can just say that to yourself and show up to your relationship in that energy and watch
and they'll feel it.
Yep.
Yeah.
The next thing, to bring something tangible to someone who's not fully under, and I totally, like, if I watched this 3 years ago,
yeah, what the fuck are they talking about?
And kind of like, what they're talking about, like energy and feeling, like I wouldn't have understood it. And so just to speak to the mind for a second, a very tangible thing that couples can do is figure out what love language is your prominent one.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with it, there's 5 love languages, and it's kind of like English and French and Chinese. So like, picture a Chinese man trying to speak to a French woman. He's going to be, and he might be saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. French woman's going to go, I don't understand. I don't understand. What
are you saying?
What are you saying? What are you saying? And she goes, I love you, I love you, I love you. He goes, I don't understand what you're saying. Because, and we're the same as humans. We have different ways of receiving love. And they're physical touch, they're words of affirmation, they're quality time, there's gifts, and then there's acts of service. So like 5 different ways to receive and give love. And we found that most relationships have a disconnect, and because everyone's slightly different. So you might be thinking, hey, I do the dishes, I clean the floors, and she doesn't even acknowledge me.
Yeah.
Right? I take out the rubbish and she doesn't even acknowledge me. I never hear a word. Common complaint from men is, I'll do everything right and I get a meh. But when I fuck up, I hear about it for weeks.
Yeah.
It's a very common complaint. And so the 5 love languages really helped us. So like, for example, I can say to Jaimee, my love language is physical touch. That's how I feel and
I
give
think
love.
99% of men are physical touch. Like every guy.
All right.
Too.
That's a good thing to know, right, ladies? So if you're wondering why is he not feeling loved, or am I not feeling loved by him? It's probably because he's giving love with physical touch, and you might be something different.
Yes, and that's it. We tend to give love in the way that we want to receive it,
Absolutely.
not in the way the other person actually receives it.
Exactly. So Jaimee's a words of affirmation gal. She loves to be told, right?
Yeah, I'm there
told.
with you, girl.
Loves to be told.
Tell me how amazing I am.
we had a joke in the car on the way back from yoga, actually. I think Erik uses it quite strategically.
Absolutely.
So in the times, like we thought we'd make up a meme, you know, like when your woman's about to roar and it's just like, you're so beautiful. And she goes from like, oh. What does that do? Like, I'll hear this drop of like, you're so beautiful. And I was like, you're just doing that because you feel me right now.
Yeah.
It works, right? It like disarms the trigger. It's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So that's a beautiful interlude, I guess is the word, to talking about fighting, right? Because I had a big belief that fighting was all bad. Like, we don't fight. If we fight, then it's not right, and I'm fucking out the door, right?
Yeah.
And it's so not true. Like, what I have discovered in my relationship and the relationship that I'm in now, which is probably the most conscious relationship I have been in, is that every single fight is actually a massive expansion rather than a reason to walk away.
Yes.
So I would love for you guys to share, you know, how do you move through that stuff? Like when because, you know, we all go there, right? We all get to those points where we're like, I just don't want to be around you. You are just driving me nuts. So how do you move through that?
Yeah, I'd love to share this.
Totally, me too.
I've got to pick. You go.
Okay.
No, you stop. You say goodbye. You hang up first.
The main thing for me, and this is what has really landed over the last year, is Jaimee has no ability to make me feel anything. She has no ability to make me feel sad. She has no ability to make me feel angry. She has no ability to make me feel happy. She has the ability to shine a light on parts of myself that create that emotion. So usually when I feel the need to argue or fight, it's because she has shone a light on a piece of myself that I don't like. So a perfect example, like, let's keep it super simple, right? Like, a simple example would be, sometimes I'm neglectful. Sometimes I forget appointments, and I'm not typically very planned up until now. I'm not, like, planning is not my strong suit up until now. And so whenever she goes, babe, can we just plan? Like, can we, don't, like, when she gets into that energy, that triggers me, because I go, oh, she's right. I'm good at that. And then I go, and then boom, all my conditioned tendencies are going to come up. So I'm going to fight, flight, freeze, or appease. And that triggers me. So just to set the framework is, I don't believe that the other person, I don't believe that Jaimee is responsible for a fight or an argument. It actually just shines a light on me. And then I have an opportunity to own that trigger and own my part in that. So I get to look at it and then bring it to the surface and then clear it, which allows the space to speak from truth.
Yes.
And then we can have a truthful conversation.
Yes.
Okay, so in the moment, how do you deal with that though? Because it can be like, fuck, I'm getting triggered as fuck, and all I want to do is fight. So how do you...
First of all, is like, just acknowledge it. That's what I do.
I'm
really fucking angry.
I'm really fucking triggered right now.
Yeah.
And we use the word trigger. We don't name anger, or we can, but we personally in our relationship, we just go, really triggered. I'm triggered right now.
And my response might be like, if I'm not as triggered, I might go into like hold space mode. I might be like, okay, cool, you're in your trigger. Or I'm like, I'm really fucking triggered too. like, okay, cool, here we are. We're in this new place.
So do you move apart and then come back, or do you try and figure it out straight away?
I like that one. I like the move apart.
and come back.
I'll just leave the room. I'll go for a drive.
Create the space.
Because it's not productive to stay in that space and speak from trigger, in my opinion.
My conditioned tendency is to fight and to fix. And so like, I want to like get into it now.
Yeah.
So mine is to not walk away. And I like it when he, like, if he's to leave in a trigger, it triggers my abandonment stuff, like my little girl abandonment stuff. Right. So what I want to share as a holistic, like if we just zoom up for a second, I think fights are about getting to truth. I think fights are about getting to the truth. And the only reason we fight is when we don't have the ability to get to truth without the fight. So when we build frameworks and communication styles and you have an understanding of each other and you come from a place of generosity, you can drop into truth more easily. You don't have to have the explosion of emotion to get to the truth. So what I've found with our practice, because we are both so committed to communication and because we do genuinely really love each other and we want the best for each other and for ourselves, that we have practiced getting to truth quicker. So sometimes it doesn't take the big triggers. So for an example, this morning on the way, because of this self-awareness, because of this like sovereignty within self, on the way home from yoga, we had a coffee and Erik was like, let's set an intention for this interview. I was like, great. And he was like, I want to like, everything's on the table. I want all cards out. Like, I really want like just to be so transparent and so real. And I want to take down the veil and all the things. And in that moment, I was feeling a little bit triggered and I didn't know that I was triggered in the moment, but I was like, yeah, like I get that. And there's just, you know, a piece of me that's like, you know, podcast interviews, like, let's not share all our shame and like stuff like all over like interviews, like for people to see, like they get to be in like containers where we're doing deep work with people and we want to inspire them to those deep places, people that want to do the deep work, not just anybody listening, you know, like, and what was really going on, it wasn't about that. What was really going on was I felt he was saying that how I show up as I am wasn't enough, that like it wasn't deep enough. And so I wanted to like, I was like, there's something here for me because I was feeling it. So my immediate reaction is like, I'm feeling this, there's something here for me. Can I open? And then I dropped in and there was tears. I was feeling really vulnerable as it was. And I was like, babe, like I'm already feeling really vulnerable. And I feel like you're telling me that how I be isn't good enough, or it's not like, it's not already raw enough, or it's not already, you know, going to be really valuable. And so I felt that and I had the little tear. And of course, as soon as I'm in my heart, he's like, okay, that makes sense. I see you. And then it was clear. Yeah. And it was like, oh, that makes sense. And then we get to show up, right? So it's like we've practiced. Yeah. And we've practiced, like, if I'm really honest,
I just want to really say is that to those who are watching who are completely new to this, it doesn't just happen overnight.
No. This
practice.
Is practice.
Yeah. So don't sit there and beat yourself up or feel like you're getting it wrong or you're fucking it up. You're not. It just takes practice. It's with the awareness comes the change and the shifts. So just commit to constantly being the best version of yourself in your relationship.
Yeah.
If we're like being really real, like in the beginning, it was like just noticing that it's a trigger was a triumph.
Yeah.
You know, like
exactly.
You know, like, but I would just be angry. Why are you angry? I'm angry. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm angry, or I feel stupid, and then I would go in from anger into sadness. And why do I feel sad? I don't know why I feel sad. I don't know why. I don't feel.
Well, that's what's always underlying the anger, right? It's the deep sadness.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it was just like, oh, I was triggered. That's what a trigger is.
That's what a trigger is.
That was the triumph. Like, oh, that's what. And then I get better and better at noticing a trigger. Oh, there it is again. There it is again. Oh, this guy's a bit of a comeback king. He's like coming back, this sadness thing. But it's usually preceded by anger. And then, so he goes from anger into sadness. Oh, that's interesting. So just like noticing the patterns.
Yeah.
And even the triggers aren't even logical. Like for me, I feel it in my body. I feel it in my stomach. It's like this pang. And I'm like, ooh, oh God, okay, there's something. Like what's going on there? But to talk all the time.
Be aware of it. And what I also want to share is that this work, this emotional mastery work is like my life's work. Yeah. And it came from a place of like me being in so much deep pain and suffering, like in my life, in my teens, in my early 20s, like of really not knowing, you know, why I felt such a victim to the world and my life, like everything was happening to me and I didn't know how to get out of it. And I felt so powerless. And that pain has driven me to become so fucking acutely aware of what this is so that I can embody it and then be a useful example to teach it to others. So if you're watching this, know that this is like my life's work. So don't compare yourself to that. But what I would invite is like, just notice. And the way that it's been up until now and how powerless you've felt, it doesn't have to be that way. And really, when we can sit in our hearts, when we sit in our vulnerability, like it's through vulnerability. And I believe that to be vulnerable in a relationship, first women get to go and practice vulnerability, being held by sisters in women's circles and spaces.
Yes.
Deep holding.
Yeah.
And then you get to like do that work on yourself to then come really whole to your relationship and practice there. And then you've got the boundaries and the confidence to ask for what you need and what you want, right? And it's not overnight.
That's important too. And that whole, you know, my thing was definitely, you know, I would do all this work and I would get to a place where I felt really confident. I felt really good within. I felt really centered and calm. And then I'd get into a relationship and it was like all of that just went out the window. Because what happens is that we then get into a space where the trigger, and that's where the real work begins, right? Is that the triggers come up and you've got this person mirroring back all of the stuff within you that still gets to be looked at and loved on. But till you really like get into that kind of experience, then you can sit there and cruise through life and think, oh yeah, I've got this. But it's really when that stuff really starts coming up, you're just like, okay, cool. Now we're actually doing some deep shit here.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well said.
So I wanted to touch on shame a little bit. And I would love for you guys to tell us about a time where you've experienced deep shame in your relationship and how you've moved through that. So for those watching, I just wanted to like define what shame is as well compared to guilt. So shame is when it is coming from a place of I am rather than guilt, which is an I did. So it's like, I am a terrible person. I am scum. I am dirty. I am an arsehole. Whatever it is that's kind of you're labeling yourself as being, that is where shame comes in and it becomes that shame spiral.
Where do you want to go?
So the workshop that we did together where we met, Nikki, there was a huge shame practice there, which enabled us to meet those places of ourselves. And the reason we do that is to free ourselves. Yeah. Right. And when we came home from that exercise, we weren't in the same group, so we didn't witness each other in our shame. Yeah. However, when we got home, I think it was that night, there was just this, it overcame me, and Erik was in the shower and I was like, I need to share all of my shame with you. Like I want to do this exercise essentially with you. And I stood and I literally bared all of it. Like there was like, I don't know, maybe 6 things that I had held deep shame about in my life. And I shared it all naked while he was in the shower. Like, I don't think I even really gave you much of a warning. I was just like, I'm gonna do this. It was kind of, I laugh about it now, but you know, it was about me setting myself free. And I feel like, you know, I share that, you know, there's nothing in our relationship that you don't see, that I'm afraid for you to see, that you know, I remember being in relationships where I didn't even like having the lights on or getting changed in front of my partner, or
doing the sideways wiggle out to the toilet so you didn't see your bum. That was
okay. Or, you know, can I wear makeup, put makeup on in the morning, or, you know, like there was all that. There was a lot of that, right? Yeah. And I'm really proud to say that there's like none of that. You know, I can feel beautiful with and without, and that's not you. I think that's I mean, it's you and the space you hold for us, because you are such a space of non-judgment in who you be, and unconditional love, which is just so beautiful, because this man is just the embodiment of that. And then the work that I've done on myself to really be a reflection to myself of unconditional love and a space for everything being possible. Like all of you is welcome. Like I think we like to kind of show up with our friends and our tribe and our clients, and everything is like all of you is welcome. And it's because we've met all of ourselves.
Yeah,
right.
I definitely feel that. Like there's something about these two when you meet them, and particularly you, Jaimee. I just remember like when we went and did that light worker activation, and there was that part where we had to do the looking in, and you came over and you grabbed me. You're like, I've been meaning to catch up with you for ages, and I just feel your truth. Like I feel that you just genuinely and authentically embody what you speak, what you do, like all of that. There's just a realness to you, and I really just want to honor that, because it's really beautiful and it's rare.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What
about you, Erik?
Want to share shame pieces?
Shame is interesting. I didn't understand what shame was. Like as a dude, I was like, what even is shame? There's like, there's stuff that you don't talk about. That was part of just the reality. Like, yeah, the stuff that I've done in my life, and I just don't talk about it. Like I'll never, like I had like weird pacts with my friends that were like, we'll never speak of this again. You know, like there's that. And then there's the pieces of like, what does that mean about me? And so that means I'm this kind of person, right? Which is underlying. And I never even used to let it into my thought process. Like if someone asked me about what am I ashamed of, like I would have a hard time digging it out. Right? Because I just, what do you mean? Like I've just, boom, stuffed it down. Like it's not even part of my awareness. And then I learned that, I see you. And then I learned that through the work. And look, I personally believe that I couldn't have done this alone. There are so many mentors and so many friends and so many relationships that have just pointed things out for me. The number one step that I had to take was, I'm not happy.
That's huge for guys, right?
That's the moment when I was like, fuck.
Acknowledging that.
Yes. And I'm not getting in, like, it's not getting any better.
Yeah.
Like, right. So like, and that's the three pains, like the pain in the present, like right now I'm in pain. And then in the past, it's been painful in the past. And then I look forward and I go, it's not looking like it's going to change. So it's going to be painful in the future as well. And then boom. All right. Something's got to change. And so I just went in and I said, look, I don't know what it is, but I got to change something. So I just said, I'll try anything. I'll go into, okay, what meditation's all about. Okay, that I don't resonate with that meditation, but that meditation resonates. I'd go to a seminar. I'll do whatever it takes, but it comes from a decision right off the bat. Like, I'm not happy.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, especially with like human psychology, it takes that low point for us to really ignite the change. And that was definitely for me. Like, my change was, my catalyst was a friend of mine dying from a drug overdose, and the realization that I was suffering so badly. I was in so much pain that my life could be taken from me in an instant. And I was like, this has to change. And that's, you know, often the way that we humans are designed, is that it takes hitting that low point to us, for us to actually ignite something. And that's what it can suck, because it's like, well, we go through and we know we're not happy. Like, we know we're not happy, but often you don't know how to kind of move through it, or actually what to do, or how to create the change, or how to even reach out, so, and especially for men, right? Like it's massive for guys.
So a lot of so just to honor your question and honor the point, to really put a point on it, like I believe most of the magic of this is actually created by the work we do outside of this.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I've committed to working on myself. Jaimee's definitely committed to working on herself. And we take those evolutions of ourselves and we bring it to the relationship. It's not that this relationship is the be all end all. If this is okay, then our lives are good.
Yeah.
It's not that, because that's been an addiction of my life too. Like, as long as
I have moments of it still.
This is okay. But it's the same in business in all areas, right? As long as this is okay. And then we're constantly striving for it to be, I'll be happy when. It's like, no, it's finding that joy and that contentment within self.
Yep.
And then
regardless of what chaos is going on around you.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's work.
So to touch on shame, I didn't realize that was a part of the problem. I had no idea. I just knew I wasn't happy. And then, like the breadcrumbs, like Steve Jobs, you can always connect the dots looking back. It's hard to do it looking forward. So I ended up in shame, and that was a huge release. But if I'm listening to this 3 years ago, I don't go, you know what? I've just got some stuff down shame that I'm dealing, and that's what, that wasn't even part of my. I had no idea. I was just like, you know what? I'm not happy. Yeah.
We can think about these parts of ourselves, like all of the things that have happened to us, the negative experiences, the emotion, shame, whatever, is stored in the body.
Yep.
And what we need to do, we need to free up real estate to invite new possibilities in, right? So to be able to free up real estate, we need to release these things from the body.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you think about it like that from a logical sense, right? If you are called to do more work, then that can be a point. And I also just want to share that in my experience, there's some people, like I would describe Erik as somebody who operates, you know, like from here, he's just like, I'm going to focus on the good. Like there might be stuff here, but it's not here. It's not affecting me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm all good. I'm all good up here. Right.
Yep.
And then like myself, there was no buffer. There was like no buffer to be able to stuff anything. Like I still stuff down, but I would kind of sit in that. So I would find myself in more depressed states. I would find myself with more anxiety. I would find myself not being able to positive think my way out of it.
Yeah.
So therefore my human experience was maybe, I found myself experiencing more suffering because there wasn't a filter. And I'm not saying that you have a filter, but you were just really good at like not feeling.
4.5
Is that
years.
suppression though?
It's suppression,
Total
right?
avoidance, right? So it's not necessarily that he's happier. It's just that he's denying himself feeling that.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I feel like some people don't have that denial filter, so then they're just experiencing life, and then they go to the doctor and they get some antidepressant medications, and you know, like there's like these cycles, and when we're surrounded by communities of people where that's just the norm, you start to outcast yourself, and you'd be like, oh, there's something wrong with me because everybody else seems to have a happy life, because look at their Instagram and look at their relationship and look at blah 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 blah. But what I want to say to that is that there's a reason that you don't have a filter, and that it's there for you. That's your work to heal it and clear it. And a lot of the time the women that come to me, like I feel it, and I say they're here to work with the women, and they're here to help. You know, they have this huge desire on their heart, and this stuff that they're sitting through, the stuff that's really challenging for them, is their work. It's part of their initiation to step into who they are and who they came here to be. And I just want to presence that, like, when some people, it seems okay. It seems like they don't have stuff because they're really good at suppressing it. And then others feel like there's something wrong with them because they can't seem to get over it. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong, right, good or bad about either. It's just different. Yeah. And I just wanted to presence that. And
then two souls, you know, that are really good at acting, right? Like they get together and then they put on a show for the world, and everyone goes, wow, I wish I had your relationship. Yeah. So they try to mimic what they think that relationship is about, not knowing anything about that relationship. And then it becomes just a stuffing down fest. Hello. Like we live from the head up and going, yeah, exactly. I mean, and slowly dying on the inside, and then eventually manifest disease. So this thing is real. And that
was actually one of my triggers for creating this, was that I kept seeing these couples who had these perfect relationships on Instagram. Yeah. Then next minute they're falling apart and they're breaking up. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, can we just start being real? You know, like you don't have to be sharing every like serious, like devastating fight or whatever, but just be real. Like occasionally it's not all fucking sunshine and roses, right? And that you don't want it to be. You really because that's boring shit. And you don't grow and you don't expand. You, like you said, you die. Your relationship is dying if it's all just like, and people are like, but there's people out there that have these incredible relationships all the time. And I'm like, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. No. You know, you don't know what it really takes to make this relationship work. It takes that commitment from two people, that effort from two people to actually do the work on themselves and then grow in their relationship. Yeah. Yeah.
Aho.
Yes. I do want to touch on sex. Let's go there.
Boom.
How's sex?
Demonstration?
Has it changed? Why not? It was flow, wasn't it? We were just going to be like, see what comes up. But I would love to know, like, what's your sex life like since when you guys met to, like, how did you guys meet actually?
At a sex dungeon.
I was hang her up. Yeah, group orgy.
Not really. That's so funny.
We were in the same Tony Robbins room 3 years running and only met on the third time.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So we were Unleash the Power Within, walking on fire and breaking through barriers.
Awesome.
And then we met only the third year. That's how we essentially met. Let's talk about sex. Where do we want to start with sex?
So I really want to just look at like the progression, because I think there's a lot of like stigma, or not stigma, but expectation that sex it dies in a relationship.
Yeah.
You stop wanting to have sex. And I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, but I'd love to share what your kind of journey's been like with that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as a man, there's a whole bunch of stigma around what it means to be good in bed. So let's put that on the table. Like, there's a whole bunch of expectations about being good in bed and the results of that. So like, okay, if she comes before me, then that's a good thing. If we have sex regularly, that's a good thing. All right. So there's all these, and porn is a massive impact. Like, I saw stats like 67% of boys 15 and younger have watched porn. I've watched porn regularly, meaning once a week or more. Like, it's nuts. And I believe those
15.
15 and under.
Yeah.
Oh,
67%.
That scares me.
So, and speaking to my friends as well, most of them started watching porn between 9 and 11 years old. So, and now that's the past generation. Now it's even more accessible.
Yeah, well, that was magazines and like love-making tapes and things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's available now, the shit that's available.
It's on the phone.
It's on the phone.
Yeah.
And so I just want to presence that and put that in. So I came to the relationship with a ton of programming.
Yeah.
And I also had an idea that sex needs to be consistent, and it needs to be a certain amount of, like a certain length, right? The longer I last, the better that is. And it's all about the hype, the heightened moments. It's so I had to look at that and go, is that making me happy? And is that making her happy? You know, and that's what the beauty of committing to something long-term has been. Like, once the commitment is there, like, you know what, through thick and thin, I'm committing to this. And that was when I fully could just drop everything and go, you know what, I'm dealing with this, and this. So there was a pivotal moment in our relationship before and after Bridge, when that commitment happened, of like, I fucking choose you. When that happened, before that, there was a level, there was me performing.
Yes, it's a performance.
It was me, and I was doing a fucking great job because I made it a point, right? That was my.
Was he doing a great job, Jaimee?
No.
See, you thought you were.
That's not a question to ask right now. I was doing
You wanted
great.
to go there.
I was crushing it. Because I had this performance mindset. I was focused on the outcome, not on being there. So come back to like love languages. I was giving love in a way that I thought I was supposed to give love.
Yeah.
And it wasn't landing. So post Bridge. Actually, do you want to speak to that before? So our beginning of our relationship?
I think it was just like where we were at, you know, so a lot of this feminine work that I've been doing, there's a lot of like sexual healing and ancestral trauma. And if you've never heard that before, then don't worry about it. But if you have, you know what I'm talking about. So
it's a thing.
Well, when I think about our sex, I have a belief now that like we have a lifetime together to explore it.
Yeah.
Like that's my belief, that we have a lifetime together to explore it. And our sex, like we've talked, so I'm really big on measuring and understanding, if you haven't told already.
I thought you meant measuring as in.
They measuring. Well, we've done that too. Erik and his big dick.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's another story for another time.
I'm gonna put that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, there was like a point where I was like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, like how happy are you in our sex life?
Yep.
And we had that conversation.
Yes.
We're like, okay, I'm a 8, and I'm a 7, or I'm a 9, or I'm an 8, and it changes time, like month to month, week to week, even.
Yep.
I was like, great. And then we worked out, okay, cool. Well, why is it an 8? And we worked out that there was frequency, level of connection, and what was the last thing? Maybe there was one more thing. So then we dived into like what that actually meant. He's like, oh, well, frequency wise, I'm this, and frequency wise, I'm that. And we worked out that we actually had different needs and desires when it came to
Different
sex
needs.
and how we connect.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was such a beautiful practice of like understanding that. So like Erik's frequency was higher than what mine was, yet the level of connection and intimacy was deeper for me than maybe what he needed.
Yep.
He needed to have sex to feel connected. I needed to feel connected to have sex.
Yes.
So
Very common
Yes.
dynamic.
Yeah.
Man and female.
Yeah.
Yep. Would you say that again for them?
Yeah. So men need to have sex to feel connected, and women need to feel connected to have sex. So you can see how that's a bit opposite. So I think there's a level of generosity that we have to come into a relationship with. We have to understand where they're at, what they're going through, you know, like actually putting myself in your shoes for a second, you know, like if I'm like, in all truth, like my belief, when I've thought about sex and stuff and wanting to, like, my brain wants to be like, oh, it should look like this. Cause I hear stories of like amazing women in my space and circles that are having fucking visions of Isis goddesses during their sex and like all of these like crazy like meditation things. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I want that. Like, I want to see fucking Isis and have downloads in our sex, you know, like, like in ancient times, the priestesses would use sex as it was quite a spiritual practice. And so if I let myself go into comparison and run stories, then I would be telling myself a whole lot of stories. But what I got really clear on is like that we have a lifetime together to explore that. And right now, like, sex is good. And I know that it can be great and through the roof as well. And not that it's not great at moments.
It's not great right now.
But that's the thing, and that's what's real, you know. It goes through times where it's like especially when we throw kids into the mix, like there's times where it's just like, baby, get it in me, let's go. And there's other times where we have time to actually make love over a long period of time. But there was also a period there where we didn't have sex for a long time because we couldn't fit it in. So it's like, you know, realization, being real about it. And like what you said is that I need to feel connected. I need to feel loved. I need to feel supported by him in order to want to have sex. But he needs, you know, sex to feel connected. So it's like this, but a realization for me was that I was making it all about me too.
The generosity.
I was like, what am I getting out of this? And rather than actually looking and choosing to give him pleasure, there was one point where he said to me, you know, you used to give me pleasure because you liked doing it. And I was like, oh, fuck, babe, you are so right. Like, I'd stopped doing that stuff. And I hadn't done that intentionally, but this was just the result of a fuckload of shit happening in a really short amount of time, and us just feeling completely disconnected from each other. So I think, you know, it's that understanding and it's that open communication and having those conversations that aren't always easy, but are always going to get you probably the best results and the biggest results, right?
We get to truth, and with the truth, we have more expansion.
Exactly.
Really putting a point on it, it comes back to, if we feel like we need the other person to fill us up, to make us feel a certain way, if we need the other person, that's again old paradigm. That's me half to a whole. So the best thing that when it's perfect what you said, Nikki, is perfect, because when Jaimee is fully filling her own cup and when she does her movement practices, she's so hot and attractive to me. Like, I'm just drawn to that. And when I am honoring my mission and I'm, you know, stepping into my masculine, she goes, oh. So the biggest thing we've learned in our sex life is not to work on the sex.
Yes.
Actually to work on ourselves. Again, Jaimee, how can I feel fully in my body? Me, how can I stay on mission? And that increases polarity, boom. And as we know, polarity, boom.
And that's the innate way that we are designed, is that, you know, that masculine and feminine, it's in our DNA. You know, and we are drawn to that. We are drawn to masculine men, our men who are on purpose, who are in mission, who are like focused and who are stepping up and taking charge. And for me, the feminine, and I think that's something that's really, like, I'm so grateful for the feminist movement and all that it has like given us. And it's seriously fucked a lot of women up, because it's made women become hard as fuck and hate men in a general sense. And that's where my journey is at the moment, is stepping deeply. Like, because I had a belief that if I'm in my feminine, it makes me weak. And if I'm not in control and he's in power more in the relationship, then I'm being controlled, and that's not okay. Whereas what I'm realizing is the more I step into my feminine and embody that, the more powerful I actually feel. The more he steps into his masculine, the more I want to have sex with him.
Boom.
My libido, my vagina is just going, whoo, come at me, you know, like it's opening up again. Because we went through that phase of, I had risen so far into my masculine, he had dropped into his feminine. And I'm like, I don't want to have sex with you. Like, why would I want to have sex with you? You're like a woman, you know?
No.
So it was like this beautiful awareness of,
Oof.
well, actually, it doesn't make me weaker to be in my feminine at all.
Yeah.
It's really
Well said. Well said.
This journey, I love it. I'm so fucking, I love it. All right, so just a couple of questions, quick questions to finish off, because I'm just wary of time. What's the key ingredient to sustaining a relationship?
Communication.
Self-responsibility.
Beautiful. Radical self-responsibility. Where do you think most people are getting it wrong?
Communication.
Self-responsibility.
Yeah. Okay, if there's one piece of parting information that you would like to leave the viewers, listeners with, what would it be?
Time sign.
Life, there's always going to be other options. And I found myself in a relationship going, oh, I remember when I was single.
Mm.
And I've been single going, oh, I remember when I was in a relationship. And I'll give the advice that really landed for me when Tom Bilyeu and his wife decided that they're not going to have children. And he said, the best thing that led me to that decision was a friend of mine. He said, whatever you choose, choose it wholly, fully, and without regret.
Yeah.
And I choose this relationship wholly, fully, and without regret.
Mm.
And that's
love
my
that.
advice.
Beautiful. Thank you.
He nailed it.
Are you happy with that? All right, my loves. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is such a beautiful conversation.
Yeah. And I just really want to say, you know, I'm incredibly grateful for you guys saying yes to this as well, and being a part of this and sharing this, because I believe it's really important work. And when we start having these conversations, it opens up that space for others to just feel more human and not feel so alone.
Everybody deserves to feel more human. And thank you for having us. And I just want to share with anybody that's watching that has any further questions or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to both of us or put it in comments or whatever. Like,
how can they find you? How can people watch?
Yeah. Jaimee Leigh Curtis on Facebook and Instagram.
Erik Bergan, just click the link down below. You've got it.
Yeah. I'll tag all your socials and everything in the
Easy done.
Yeah.
Easy done. And or more importantly, keep watching the next episodes of this show and these conversations. We're two humans. You might not resonate with us.
Yes.
But the next people that are coming on, they might be your people. So keep watching. Be part of the conversation.
Beautiful. Love it.
Thank you, my love.
Thanks, guys.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I really, really enjoyed that conversation, and I'm pretty sure you would have too. How amazing are they? And it was so beautiful to sit with the gorgeous Jaimee and the handsome Erik and really dive into some real talk around their relationship, and what it takes for them to create such an incredible, sustainable, loving space between two humans. So good. Fills me up so much. I'm super pumped for the next one. And yeah, I hope that you guys got something out of it. So if you'd like to connect with Jaimee or Erik, you can find them on social media. I've dropped all their links below in the description. And also, if you're feeling called to kind of go deeper with this stuff and you would like some support, then please head over and join my Soulmate Attraction group, where I share so much information around not only attracting your partner, but creating incredible relationships to be able to sustain, you know, to make a relationship last and go the distance. Because it does take effort, my loves. It really does. But when you understand that, and with more awareness and understanding, it can only take flight. So if you feel so called, head over, come and join the group, or you can find me on socials as well. All my links are below as well. And until next time, remember that you are loved, you are lovable, and you are loved. I'll see you soon.